Halloween night, 2022, Stone Mountain, Georgia. I was on leave. Just a quick run to the haunt with my girl and two buddies, then backroads home. Roads damp, fog building. Normal, until the SUV coughed and died past the ridge. Hazards weak. No bars. Something big moved wrong in the dark. We stayed inside, held still. You want to hear what happened next? Stick around till the end. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. I was home in Georgia back on leave. Everything felt padded, soft. I had time to breathe, but my head still checked corners. I was 35. Staff Sergeant. My name's Marcus Hale. I had sand still stuck in my boots and a tan line around my watch. I kept telling myself to relax. Eat normal food. Elena tried to make it easy. She kept the lights low in the apartment. Left the TV on with old movies. No sudden noise. She talked to me like I wasn't made of glass, which helped. Halloween crept up. I didn't care for it. The crowds made me tight. Masks set me off. But Elena liked the goofy stuff. She wanted out of the apartment. She said it would be simple. A haunted house run. Her idea, but she roped in Ryan and Cole. They were in my old line unit back before I took the last deployment. Good guys. Ryan had the same nervous knee bounce he always had. Cole carried that fixed grin like he was ready for a dare 24/7. "Simon, Sarge," Cole said. "It's just fake blood and teenagers with cheap masks." "Beer after," Ryan added. "No pressure. We dip if you want." I stared at the kitchen counter. The fruit bowl Elena kept full. I thought about the empty place I'd been living in for months. Dirt, heat, the sizzle of a radio that never stayed quiet. I nodded. Okay, in and out. We aimed for the Netherworld Haunted House in Stone Mountain, the new place they set up off Highway 78. Real address 1313 Netherworld Way. The number felt corny. It made Elena grin. See? Fun. We rolled out near sunset. Damp roads. A half-hearted drizzle had hit earlier and left everything slick. Ryan drove his SUV. Old model, but solid. Coffee in the holders. Station preset stuck on classic rock. Someone on the radio sang about bad moonlight. I looked out at the streetlights. They smeared across the windshield. We hit the highway and tucked in with traffic. Not heavy, just steady. I watched the side mirrors the whole time. Habit. Trucks moved like whales. Tail lights blinked. Elena leaned her head on my shoulder and scrolled on her phone. She showed me costumes from the place. Knights, demons and sound, the same's then knights read. Big foam monsters. The photos looked silly. That was the point. We turned off 78 and followed signs. The place filled the slope with noise. Parking was wide and organized. Security in reflective vests waved people through with glow batons. Fog machines rolled heavy white across the asphalt. Not fog like in the mountains. This was warm and fake. Smelled like prop smoke. People laughed. Churros, funnel cakes, fried stinking sugar. I could pick out a dozen teen boys trying to look tough in hoodies. Couples clung to each other. Photographers posed friends under a giant skull arch. Costume staff pointed and screeched on cue. We parked out a row. Ryan killed the engine. We sat for a second and listened. The sound system boomed. The bass hit the doors. I breezed in. Out. "You good?" Elena asked. I nodded. "Yeah." Security wands at the gate. The staff moved quick and polite. A woman with a glow wand checked my small backpack. I carried water, a hoodie, a small flashlight. Old habit. She waved me through with a smile. "Y'all have fun." We hit the line for monsters attack. The queue moved under spotlights. Props rattled. Animatronics jerked. The air had a hot plastic smell. Fog blew into our faces. Kids shrieked when a mechanical spider dropped. Cole laughed and pointed at a guy who dropped his drink. Inside the haunt, strobe lights hammered the halls. Compressed air hissed from hidden nozzles. It hit my neck and I flinched, then stood it down. The floor angled weird on a bridge room. Elena squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "Yeah," just loud. Actors jumped from behind walls, timed to audio cues. Chains rattled. Someone swung a fake axe inches from my face. I let reflex stay in its cage. Hands open. shoulders down. When a blast of fake smoke rolled in, my night vision flickered and recovered. I tracked exits on instinct, not because I wanted to, because that's how I'm wired. We flowed with the crowd through narrow corridors. Painted foam, grime paint, bones made of plastic. The place worked. It threw staggered hits and then gave you breath. The team behind it knew pacing. I respected that. We popped out into the midway. Big space, heaters glowing red, jack-o'-lantern towers stacked like little orange guard posts. Music changed to something like carnival drums. Food stands cranked, cinnamon, grease, powdered sugar floating in the light. Photo booths spit out strips, costumed staff in big bulky suits. A zombie waved at a toddler who waved back and tried to bite his own hand. I started to laugh. Real laugh. Elena saw and smiled. That got me more than the stunts. Being normal again for a bit. I tried a ring toss, won a small stuffed bat for her. Cole booed like I cheated. Ryan filmed and said he'd send it to the group chat. We split a paper tray of fried pickles, salt on my tongue, grease on my fingers. I felt grounded. Like the weight I'd been carrying sat on the bench for a minute. End of the first haunt, no weirdness. Just the good kind of dumb holiday noise. I loosened my shoulders and worked my neck. The heater near us ticked, warm air on my hands. Round two, Cole asked. Might as well, I said. Normal night, normal people. Nothing waiting except more props and loud air cannons. We queued for the second haunt, Oblivion, Return of the Mangler. The line angled under heat lamps. Inside, the theme leaned medical, stainless paint, surgical light rigs, spattered scrubs on hooks. The entry room pumped that bleach smell. I knew it was a scent machine with some chemical note, but it still crawled under my skin. The timing felt off. I've run ranges. I can feel rhythm. Scares hit late, then early, then a gap. One motor started a gag, then stopped mid-motion. A corpse puppet hung at 45 degrees and stayed there. An actor slid by, then came back 30 seconds later and did the same path again like the track looped wrong. He saw me notice. He shrugged, as if to say, I don't know, man. Tech problem, Ryan said behind me. They'll reset the breaker. We pushed through a corridor with heat lamps mounted above. It was hotter than it should be. I looked up. One lamp flickered. The others held steady. The ceiling vents pushed warm air that tasted stale. We passed a prop door marked with hazard symbols. Behind it, I smelled something sharper. Burnt plastic, like a cable sheath cooking. I flagged the staffer when we reached the next corner. Something's burning back there. He nodded but didn't even look. We're aware, he waved us along. That bugged me. We came out to the exit ramp. The crowd outside looked thinner. People spread out more. The fog machines ramped up and the output drifted past the fence and into the first rows of cars. The fog had weight to it tonight. The air wasn't cold, but that smoke held low like wet wool. It spilled off the midway and down the slope toward the outer lot. A uniformed security guy stood at the edge of the midway and scanned the tree line with a flashlight. Normal, I told myself. Property backs up to woods. They keep an eye out. He lifted his radio and said something while still scanning. He didn't linger, but he kept checking the same 3 spots. Elena pulled at my sleeve and pointed at a portable barrier panel by the walkway. Thin aluminum with a vinyl wrap. Across the side, lower half, a set of scratches ran in a clean diagonal pattern. Not part of the print. Fresh. The lines were deep enough to drag metal and burr the edges. 4 strokes together, spaced even. It looked like someone keyed it with intention. Teenagers, I said. Some jerk with a multi-tool. I said it, but it didn't sit right. The cut lines had a taper. The kind that comes from something curved. The heater units flickered once. The background music cut out for a few seconds, then came back thin, then full. People joked about power and ghosts. It was that kind of night. A little sloppy but fun. We moved to the bar tent. Ryan bought beers. I stuck to water. I wanted my head clean. Cole kept trying to get the bartender to talk about backstage stories. She had a deadpan act and didn't bite. Technical reset, she finally said. That's all. I watched the fog creep across the midway floor like a slow tide. My knees felt cold. Not the kind of cold that comes from weather. A different kind. I shook it off. The smell shifted. The fake smoke smell faded, and something else ran under it. Damp, musky. Animal. My mind went to a kennel I visited once on a call with a buddy. That same heavy animal smell. Dense fur. Wet dirt. I glanced toward the trees again. Security had moved. Different guy now. He traced his beam across trunks and brush. People flowed around him without noticing. The bar tent canopy snapped from a small gust. The guy stringing lights on a pole nearby swore when a strand went dark and then bright again. Elena rubbed her forearms. "Feels colder," she said. I looked at my breath. No puff. Air wasn't that cold, but I agreed. The temp felt off. I tucked her closer to the heater. The flame licked at the grid and steadied. Someone laughed near the photo booth. Another group posed, then ran when an actor in a lab coat screamed on cue. The sound system hiccuped again. The crowd notched quieter for a moment, just a breath. Then the barkers ramped it back up. I told myself it was nothing. Machines misbehave, crowds ebb, smells mix. The staff weren't panicking, so no reason for me to. Still, I watched the fog roll past the fence and into the lot. The smoke swallowed the first 2 rows of cars. Headlights came and went like weak eyes. The line for the next haunt stretched, then shrank. We said one more drink, then we go. No reason to push it. We'd seen enough. The night could end on a win. Near quarter to midnight, the fog pushed out beyond the midway and into the outer parking. It didn't look like machine fog anymore. It had spread into sheets. Visibility dropped hard once you stepped past the heaters. People noticed. You could hear it in the way the crowd spoke. Tighter voices, shorter words. Staff walked through and told folks to head toward exits. No big announcement on the PA. Just runners moving people along and saying technical reset over and over. The word felt rehearsed. A manager type in a black jacket nodded to security near the tree line. He looked at his radio, spoke, listened, then pointed at the lot. A sound rolled in from the trees, low, long. It carried heavy in the fog. Not a coyote yip, not a dog bark. It was drawn out like the air got pulled through a big chest cavity and then pushed back. I felt it in my sternum more than in my ear. Some guests clapped and whooped, thought it was an effect. A guy in a vampire cape yelled, "Nice touch." Elena stiffened against me. "I don't like that," she said. She kept her eyes on the fence line by the dumpsters. The fog there thinned for a second like someone moved behind it. Big someone, not staff-sized. The chain link had those wind slats. Something passed, and the slats shivered. I saw 2 security workers stand and turn their lights toward the trees, tight beams cutting lines in the haze. One lifted the radio and spoke calm words I couldn't hear. The other stepped forward and then stopped like someone tugged him back with a leash you couldn't see. The lights around the midway flickered. Once, twice, then steady. The speakers cut out for a few beats. I could hear shoes on wet asphalt. The fog hissed around the heaters and made them look like islands. People decided they were done. You could hear the shift. Powers cutting. Let's beat traffic. The exit swelled. The staff didn't fight it. They kept saying technical reset in that same tone. You only use a phrase like that when you've rehearsed it. That bothered me. We looked at each other and shrugged it off. It was late. Ryan said he wanted to get Elena home. She nodded fast. Cole did that fake, brave grin. "Let's call it," he said, but he adjusted his jacket like he felt the same cold. We walked down the slope to the outer rows. The fog smothered the lines between cars. Our breath didn't show, but the air had that hollow chill. We clicked the key fob and followed the blink. Doors opened. Seats groaned. The SUV felt tight like a safe. Ryan fired it up. The dash glowed. Warm air started and then steadied. We watched people move between fog islands. Their voices got swallowed quick. We pulled out slow. The tires rolled through wet leaves. The fog had puddled in low spots. We crawled past security. A guard waved us through with a baton. I looked back at the midway lights. They looked dimmer. The heaters still burned steady. The big skull grinned at nothing. We turned out of Netherworld onto the road. The gate slid by. I rolled my shoulders, felt tension bleed. If you told me an hour later I'd be wishing hard we stayed there all night, I'd have believed you. That was the last place with people. The last place with rules and light. We left thinking it was just a crowded fake scare spot in a weird fog bank. We didn't know what waited where the road narrowed and the woods thickened. GPS said the highway was packed from some late wreck. Ryan picked a scenic back road that clipped the Appalachian foothills. He liked the drive, said it calmed him. I liked him focused. He drove better when he cared. The fog followed. It thickened mile by mile. Trees leaned close. Branches dripped. The beams cut short cones through the haze, music off. Everyone quiet. The road should have felt familiar. Georgia roads are Georgia roads, but the fog turned each turn into a guess. Elena held my hand and rubbed my knuckles with her thumb. It was her way of saying, "Stay with me." I squeezed back. I checked the time. midnight. The dashboard flickered once. A stutter. Then it came back bright. No warning light stayed on. I watched the battery icon anyway. I listened to the engine. It sounded fine. A small tick I didn't like, but nothing more than a button sticking. I told myself that. A howl came through the fog. Closer. The tone drew a clean line. That's the way it sounded. Not scatter. Not a pack yip. One voice carrying weight. It cut in from our right and angled away. It had depth I didn't hear in coyotes. Bigger lungs. More air moving. The SUV air felt colder after. The hair on my arms rose. Elena pulled her coat tight. Coyotes, Ryan said like he had to say it. Cole said nothing. The road wound uphill. Pines gave way to thicker hardwood. The fog climbed with us. 10 minutes later, the battery light flashed once. Off. Right after that, the engine sagged like someone put a heavy boot on it. Ryan lifted and rolled to the shoulder. Gravel crunched. The engine didn't die. It idled, uneven, then steadied. "What the hell," he said. He popped the hood. Steam hissed faintly. Not coolant. That has its own sharp smell. This was clean. Just heat hitting wet air. No sweet smell. I sniffed near the grill. Damp soil. Forest rot, something like wet dog, but not the backyard kind. A deep den stink. Heavy. We stepped out. The night was thick as a blanket. My small flashlight carved a short circle. The woods sucked at the light. Elena urged us to get back in. I agreed. The forest was quiet. Too quiet. No insects. No normal night hum. Even in cool months, you get something. The silence had weight. I checked near the ditch while Ryan killed the engine to let it sit. The gravel shoulders slid toward a narrow drainage run with mud at the bottom. In the mud, I saw impressions. Not clear prints. The kind that come when something steps through silt and pulls out. Large. Uneven. A heel pad shape. 4 toe arcs. The spacing on a few looked off for a normal dog. Wider stride. Some looked like it landed with more weight on a back edge, like it ran upright a step or two, then dropped again. I shook my head. I didn't like the thought. I shined the light along the road edge. More scuff marks. A couple broken branches low. The fog coiled along the ground like it had rules. I went back to the SUV. Inside, I said. No one argued. We shut doors. Ryan tried the ignition again. It caught. Dashboard lit. The battery light stayed dark. He kept it in park. "We wait," he said. 15 minutes. The silence pressed in. The kind that makes your ears ring. I kept the tire iron from under the seat across my lap. I knew it wouldn't do much, but men like tools. It makes the brain sit down. Elena leaned her head back and closed her eyes. Cole stared through the windshield like he could will the fog to clear. Ryan tapped the steering wheel. The radio hissed a little with static, though it was off. I checked the watch on my wrist. Time moved slow. A drip from a branch tapped the roof like a clock that didn't care. "Where are we?" Elena asked. Ryan glanced at the GPS. Back road off Galilee Church. It'll spit us near a small town in a few miles. Then we can hit 78 again. He forced a calm tone. The map pulsed blue and then froze. The screen blinked and came back. "Great," he said. Something rustled once out in the trees, a large thing moving slow through plants. A moment later, silence again. I told myself deer. Big, calm deer. But the weight of the sound disagreed. It had intent. The air felt like it was waiting with us. Movement at tree level. Not random, pacing. It kept distance, using the fog like a curtain. Our headlights hit a pair of glints, not bright, not red, amber, set wide. Elevated higher than a dog, lower than a man on a ladder. The glints blinked. They moved left, then disappeared. A second pair flashed lower, then a third farther right. The spacing made my stomach knot. Ryan flashed high beams. The light punched farther than I liked in fog and bounced. Shapes darted back, not on all fours. Not exactly. They rose for a step, dropped again. You catch stance in a fight. I saw shoulders, broad. I saw the built meat of a chest under fur. I stopped telling myself they were coyotes. The SUV rocked once. A shove from the rear quarter panel. Not hard, like a test. Elena yelped and grabbed my arm. I steadied her. The windows went foggy with breath. Something slid along the driver's side glass. A smear like a palm but not a hand. A pad with coarse lines running across it. The sound tracked me all the way back to other places. Claw tips scratched, dry on glass. The sound lit a switch in my head I hated. Down, I said. Keep low. Stay quiet. Cole reached for the door handle. I caught his wrist. No. He stopped. He looked at me and nodded. He kept his head down and his breathing short. Elena's breath came fast. I put my free hand on her shoulder. Breathe. A growl rolled through the frame. You know how a diesel idles and you feel it more than hear it. Like that, but alive. It started where the engine sat and moved through metal to bone. It told us things without words. It told us we were in the wrong place. A dark bulk passed the headlight beam. It circled the front and then climbed. The hood dented with a thump. The engine shifted on its mounts with a deep tick. 2 points pressed into the sheet metal. The hood creased. A muzzle shape dipped low and pushed toward the glass. The nose was wet and wide, fur stuck in the air currents from the fan. One breath smudged the glass with a wide circle. The eyes were not human. They were not the eyes of a stray dog. There was focus in them. Not curiosity, not fear. A different kind of look. It tracked us. It knew what we were. My window had cracked earlier from the pressure and the temp change. A thin edge had split at the corner when the first shove hit. I used that gap. I brought the tire iron up and swung tight underhand into the edge of the hood lip. The angle was bad, but the strike landed. I felt it bite. Something wet and slick hit the crack. The thing jumped back and the weight left the hood. It landed light for something that heavy and pulled away into the fog. It made a sound that sat right in the low register. A rough choking snarl, then went silent. Retreat. Not gone. Silence dropped like someone pulling a plug. The rear taillight burst a second later with a sharp pop. Glass fell and tinkled on the road. The SUV rocked again from the back. Then the other side. A hit on the bumper. Not full force. Probing. Counting us. Their outlines showed in cut pieces. 4 of them for sure. Tall, wide shoulders. Long arms compared to torso. Head shaped dog-like, but wrong in little ways. Ears not pinned. Snout longer than a shepherd. Fur dark and wet-looking. I tracked footfalls. Some landed flat. Some on edges. The stride shifted between 4 and 2 like it was not a choice. Like both were normal for them. They circled. We sat tight. The fog thickened and their edges blurred. I kept the tire iron low and ready. Not that it would change much. If they came in hard, this would be ugly. I ran the map in my head the way I always do when the world shrinks. Where we were, where the main road ran. What help could come. What we had, car horns, headlights, no rifles, no plates, just 2 fists and a strip of steel. An engine hum rose from down the hill. Far away at first. Then closer. I held my breath. The shapes tilted their heads and listened. The hum built and turned into the steady noise of a car climbing. The figures halted their circle. One lifted its head and sniffed. Another turned toward the sound and crouched. Something in them checked the math. It didn't like the added variable. They slid backward and melted into the fog with clean steps. No rush, no panic. Gone. The growl in the frame faded. Outside, the night filled with that hum alone. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Headlights climbed the grade behind us. Not the big blind blast of a truck. A sedan. The beam cut under the fog and threw low light on the gravel and our bumper. Ryan blinked hazards. They sputtered and then held. The sedan slowed, then stopped behind us with enough distance to not pin us. Good driving. A middle-aged guy stepped out. Jeans, work boots, flannel under a jacket. He kept his flashlight low at first. Smart man. He looked at our back window, saw the pop tail light and the bent hood. He didn't shout. He walked up slow with his non-flashlight hand open where we could see it. Ryan cracked the window. "You okay?" the man asked. His voice had a local drawl. Not put on. He swept the light once around us and caught the claw tracks on the glass. His jaw worked. He didn't say what we all thought. He pulled a phone and dialed fast. "I'm on County Road whatever," he said. "Car disabled. Looks like animal strike. People inside. Send deputies." He listened. "Yeah. Send paramedics too, and tell them to bring a wildlife guy if he got one." He looked at me. His light had the halo of a LED. I saw his eyes. He had seen things before. Not this, but something. "Come on," he said. "My car's closer to the road bend. More visible." We move quick. "All of you and mine, stay tight." "Hold up," I said. "We got someone cut." Elena had a shallow slice on her shoulder from the cracked glass edge. Not deep, but it bled and ran down her arm where the sleeve had torn. I tore a strip from the blanket in the back and wrapped it tight. She hissed and then nodded. Cole readied himself to move. Ryan put the SUV in park and killed the engine. We counted to 3 and opened doors. The night breathed in like it had been held still and now let loose. Sounds moved. Low growls. Not close like before, different angles. They pushed out across us in a semicircle pattern, like they backed up and reset the Met. Branches snapped in sequence, one at a time. A message. "We know where you are." The man popped his trunk and pulled a tire iron. He kept the flashlight tight in his other hand. He stood shoulder to shoulder with me. "Move," he said. "Now." We walked fast, crouched, heads on a swivel. The fog played tricks. It threw fake shapes. That made every real shape more real. Elena gripped me hard. We could hear pads on leaves out beyond the ditch. Not running, tracking, testing the distance. The man didn't speak again. He kept his jaw clenched and his step smooth. The sedan sat 20 yards back. It felt like 2 miles. We reached it and got Elena in the back seat first. Ryan slid in after her. Cole went around and took the other side. I stayed with the man outside. I wasn't leaving him in the open. The growls rose and fell. Their pitch carried meaning I didn't like understanding. The fog bent the sound and tossed it back. The sedan door opened next to me. I shoved the man's shoulder. "Get in." He paused like he wanted to argue, then nodded and slid behind the wheel. I took the front passenger seat and left my door cracked to listen. Not smart. But I needed a line on the sound. Sirens bled up from the valley. Faint, then clearer. That noise cut across the growls and made them shift. The pattern broke. Sirens will do that to most things. Even things that live outside our rules. The growls moved back. The movement in the brush got wider. The semicircle loosened. The man started the engine. He left it running and kept the lights on us in the ditch. The lights made the fog glow like a wall. I hated that. It made the darkness feel like a thing you could touch. The sirens hit the bend below and then climbed. Blue lights flashed and scattered across the fog like someone shaking pieces of glass. 2 county deputies pulled up. One cruiser parked in front of the SUV to block and light the scene. The other pulled behind the sedan to box the angle. They were calm. They were trained. It helped. Their spots swept the edge of the woods. The beams cut across trunks and stacked brush. No eye shine caught. No movement. The growls cut off. The forest went flat again. The deputies moved with hands on their holsters. They knew better than to pull in pointed fog. "Everyone okay?" the senior deputy asked. He had a trimmed mustache and eyes that didn't blink much. I briefed fast. Vehicle failure. Contact with unknown animals. 4. Large. Aggressive. Window damage. Hood damage. 1 minor cut. He nodded once. Paramedics are right behind us. He signaled his partner to sweep. The partner moved the spot beam back and forth, slow and patient. His radio crackled. Something about a wildlife officer en route. The deputy asked me to step out enough to show him where we had seen movement. I pointed, explained distances, showed the ditch. He bent and looked at the mud. Even through the beam wash, he saw the scuffs. "Huh," he said in a tone that meant he didn't like what he saw. The paramedics arrived and climbed out with kits. Professional calm. They took Elena's vitals. They cleaned the cut and taped it. "We'll transport," one said. I told Elena I'd be right behind her. She nodded but didn't let go of my hand until the medic pried us apart for the blood pressure cuff. We all heard it at once then. Farther out, 3 points, spaced wide, low rumbles and stagger. Not engine, not thunder. The deputies swept spots toward the sound. Nothing. The rumbles faded. The scene held its own. Blue light spun and painted everything. The fog picked up the color and carried it through the trees. The forest shut its mouth. Deputies did a quick, tight sweep. Their boot prints dragged across the gravel. They found nothing alive in the immediate tree line. What they did find, claw marks on the SUV doors, torn soil near the ditch, a smear of something dark across the hood where I had struck. The senior deputy looked at me. I looked back. We didn't say anything I'd put on paper right then. We both understood each other. He called for more units and a wildlife officer again, firmer. Then he told us to sit tight. Help had arrived, but the road still belonged to the woods. The ambulance crew stabilized Elena and checked Ryan's hands where he'd cut them on broken plastic when the taillight blew. Cole had a welt on his temple from when the SUV rocked. Nothing deep, but he shook and didn't hide it. I told the medic to leave me for last. He shrugged because he already knew the type. Wildlife officers rolled in with a pickup. 2 of them, one older, one young. The older one wore a plain jacket with a patch. He had a quiet step. He took a look at the ditch and the mud without saying a word. He measured with a tape and stuck flags. He took photos. He squatted and touched the edge of a print with 2 fingers. He didn't smile. The younger one talked to the deputy and scribbled in a notebook. "Print size?" the deputy asked. "Over 5 inches across," the older officer said. His voice was low. "Spacing's wrong for quadrupeds we see. Some of this is slipping in mud. Some is not. Looks like biped spacing in sections. Not consistent. Don't like that." He said it like he was cataloging a broken fence. Matter of fact, but his eyes kept moving, like he expected something to test him. They checked the SUV. The hood insulation hung in shreds. The belt lace snapped like someone had cut it with a clean tool. The wildlife officer ran a gloved finger along the edge. He held it up to the deputy. "Clean cut." The deputy frowned. He looked at the engine bay. He shook his head. They pulled strands from a dense seam by the hood latch. Coarse hair, gray-brown. Too thick for deer. Wrong for domestic dog. The younger officer bagged it. No roots. He said something about sending it to the lab. The older one told him which lab and what forms. The process ran itself because they had process, not because they knew what to call this. The senior deputy had me walk him through again. Start to finish, he took notes. He didn't write adjectives. He wrote distances, times, counts. He'd done this before in other contexts. He knew facts are the only things that survived the report stage. I kept it clean, no embellish. He didn't look at me like I was drunk or scared. He looked at me like a witness. The air held. Blue light spun. The fog thinned in streaks, then pooled again. The older wildlife officer stood and lifted his flashlight toward the ridge. He scanned slow. He stopped. We all heard it then. One deep howl from higher up. Not close, not far. It carried clean through the fog and down the draw. It didn't wobble like a coyote call. It didn't yip at the end. It had weight. It ran along the ridge and fell back. It stopped. No answer followed. Every head turned. The moment stretched long. The deputy's radio popped to static. Just a wash for 2 seconds, then clear again. The command channel asked for a sit rep. The deputy gave it. He kept his voice level. He didn't say the word I wanted to say. He didn't need to. All of us heard the howl. All of us filed it under the same silent word. They pushed a quick talk about doing a search. The command voice said, "Hold for daylight." The ground was bad. The visibility was trash. The wildlife guys didn't push back. The older one looked at the ridge and then down at the ditch and said, "We mark, we pull, we come back dawn." The paramedics loaded Elena. They loaded Ryan because of his cut and because his hands wouldn't stop shaking. They asked if I wanted treatment. I said later. I helped Cole into the second ambulance. He didn't joke. He stared at the fog like it might call his name. The deputy told me to get in the back of his cruiser. He said they'd escort us down mountain to the hospital. He said he'd have a patrol car sit on the SUV and a tow come in the morning with the wildlife officers. He said they'd put up tape and cones. He said it flat. I believed him. I also knew the woods didn't care about tape. They drove us down the grade. The blue lights painted the trees and made the world feel like a tunnel. I kept my eyes on the high banks. Nothing looked back. The fog thinned as we dropped. The valley opened and the night turned into a night again. Street lights showed on the horizon, human light. It felt like air moving after being held under too long. The next day, I heard, they found nothing. The mud still showed prints, but rain hit by noon and the rest turned to mush. The hair strands went to a lab. The report later said no match on known species. No roots meant no clean DNA hit. The belt got bagged and tagged. The report wrote clean words like compromised by animal activity and unknown tool marks. They closed the search at dusk and left a trail camera too. Nothing tripped them worth writing up. That is how it goes. The woods don't cooperate with paperwork. Hospital records listed lacerations, bruising, shock. Elena's shoulder took stitches. Ryan's hands cleaned up. Cole had a mild concussion. I had a scraped knuckle and a ringing head from tension. We all got tetanus shots like we were farm kids again. We were lucky. That was the word everyone used. Lucky. The official report came 2 weeks later. Probable feral dog or hybrid attack. Night, fog, bad sight lines. Startle response. Mechanical failure. The county boxed it up with clean lines. I didn't fight it. I didn't need my name in a headline that would turn into a joke online. The wildlife lab wrote that the hair showed mammal markers but didn't match black bear, coyote, domestic dog, or known regional wildlife. No roots present. Sample 2 degraded for full match. Report sealed under some code that means call us only if it happens again. No one called us. A small local paper ran a headline, 4 injured in strange animal attack near Appalachian Ridge. The story used the official phrases and a quote from a deputy thanking first responders. It mentioned fog. It mentioned Halloween. It did not mention the howl. Netherworld Haunted House posted a public note wishing us a quick recovery. They said they were reviewing safety protocols. They mentioned we visited earlier that night. Polite, clean. They did nothing wrong. Their fog machines were just fog machines. I kept my mouth shut. Elena told her mom it was a dog and a broken belt and bad luck. Scars ran up her shoulder in 4 neat lines at a slant. Once in a while she would touch them and go quiet. We avoided interviews. Ryan went back to work and stopped taking the scenic route. Cole moved apartments and picked one with a view that didn't look at trees. A year later, Halloween again, Elena wanted to try normal. We swung by Netherworld in the early evening. We stayed in the thick of the crowd. Bright lights, heaters, noise. We walked the midway and bought a pretzel. We didn't go into any haunts. We left before the fog machines kicked heavy. It felt like we were cheating. It also felt smart. On Highway 78, window cracked for air, we rolled west. The night was clear. City glow ahead. Elena held my hand on the console and leaned her head back. Somewhere far off, past the last subdivision, past the ridge line, a single long howl rolled out. Not a yip. Not a dog bark. It hung for a count and then stopped. No answer followed. I didn't say a word. I kept my eyes on the road and my hands light on the wheel. We passed a sign for Stone Mountain. The radio played something old. We drove on. The world kept its shape. The silence held. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there. See you soon.